Why you overthink and can't stop. You didn't choose to overthink, nobody does, but right now, in the background of your mind, there is a loop running, a conversation you haven't had yet, a decision you already made but keep remaking, a version of yourself doing it better, and you think if you just think about it more, you'll finally get it right. You won't. And today, I'm going to show you exactly why. Overthinking isn't a character flaw. It's not weakness. It's not laziness dressed up as intelligence. It is, at its core, a survival mechanism gone catastrophically wrong. And what makes it sinister is this: the very thing that's destroying your peace of mind is the thing your brain believes is keeping you alive. Today we go deep into the neuroscience, the psychology, the real human behavior patterns that lock people, smart people, ambitious people, inside their own heads. This isn't a feel-good video, this is a mirror. Part 1. The Loop. In 2003, psychologist Susan Nolan Huxamer at Yale published what would become one of the most important studies on why we can't stop thinking. She called it rumination, not reflection, not problem-solving, rumination, like a cow chewing the same piece of grass over and over, extracting nothing new. She found that people who ruminate, who replay, rehash, re-examine, don't just feel worse than people who don't. They make worse decisions. They solve problems more slowly. They are significantly more likely to develop depression and anxiety. And here is the part that no one talks about. Overthinking feels productive. That's the trap. Your brain releases a small hit of dopamine every time you engage with a problem. The act of thinking about something feels like progress, but you're not moving, you're spinning. The psychologist Edward Watkins at the University of Exeter discovered something chilling in his research. Ruminators, chronic overthinkers, don't think about their problems differently than other people. They think about them on a different level of abstraction. Instead of asking, "What can I do right now?" they ask, "Why am I like this? What does this say about me? What will happen if this goes wrong?" Abstract questions, with no concrete answers, asked endlessly. That is the loop. And most people never realize they're in it. Part 2, the threat brain. To understand why you overthink, you have to understand one brutal truth about your brain. It was not designed to make you happy. It was designed to keep you alive. Deep inside your brain sits the amygdala, an almond-shaped cluster of neurons whose entire function is threat detection. It is ancient, primal, and it does not distinguish between a tiger in the grass and a text message left unread. To your amygdala, uncertainty is danger. The unknown is the predator. Screen. Uncertainty. Threat. This is not a metaphor. This is neuroscience. A 2016 study published in Nature Neuroscience showed that uncertainty is more stressful than knowing something bad is definitely going to happen. Think about that. Your brain would rather have a confirmed disaster than an unknown outcome. So what does it do? It thinks and thinks and thinks, trying to predict every outcome, eliminate every variable, close every loop. Except life doesn't work that way. There are always more variables, always more outcomes. The loop never closes. And so your threat brain stays activated, cortisol flooding your system, in a state of low-grade emergency that you've simply learned to call Tuesday. Research from the University of California found that chronic overthinking physically changes the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for rational decision-making. The more you overthink, the harder it becomes to stop. You are not broken, but you may have trained yourself into a cage. Part 3, the identity trap. Here's what separates overthinkers from everyone else. It's not intelligence. Some of the most brilliant people who ever lived were catastrophic overthinkers. Darwin, Kafka, Darwin again. He spent 20 years overthinking whether to publish his theory of evolution. The difference is identity. You don't just overthink. You believe thinking is who you are. Psychologist Carol Dweck's research on self-concept shows us something disturbing. When people attach their identity to a behavior, even a destructive one, they will unconsciously protect that behavior. The overthinker who says, "I'm just an analytical person," is not describing themselves. They are defending themselves. Because if thinking deeply is your identity, your value, your edge, your reason people respect you, then stopping feels like disappearing. There's a second trap here, and it's darker. Psychologists call it the illusion of control. Overthinking gives you the feeling, not the reality, the feeling that you are doing something. That if you think hard enough, long enough, carefully enough, you can control what happens. You can't. You never could. And some part of you already knows that, which is why you can't stop. Because the moment you stop thinking, you have to feel that. Part 4. The perfectionism connection. Studies from the APA consistently show one personality trait is almost universally present in chronic overthinkers. Perfectionism. Not the Instagram kind. Not, "I just want things to be really good." Maladaptive perfectionism. The belief, buried and unexamined, that if you make the wrong move, something fundamental about you will be exposed. Dr. Brené Brown's research on shame found that overthinkers are often running from one specific fear. Not failure, not embarrassment. The fear that if you get it wrong, you'll confirm what you secretly suspect about yourself. That you're not enough. That the doubt people might have about you is right. So you think more, you prepare more, you delay, you revise, you reconsider. Not to get it perfect, to avoid the moment of truth where you find out who you actually are. That is not a productivity problem, that is a psychology problem, and no amount of planning will solve it. Part 5. The way out. I want to be careful here, because this is the part of videos like this where someone tells you to journal, meditate, and take cold showers. I'm not going to do that. Not because those things don't help, but because if you've been overthinking for years, the problem is not that you need a new habit. The problem is that your brain has learned that thinking is safety, and you cannot hack your way out of a pattern your nervous system has spent years reinforcing. The goal is not to stop thinking, it's to change your relationship with uncertainty. Here is what the research actually shows works. Measured, precise. 1. Behavioral activation over analysis. A landmark study by Watkins and colleagues showed that action, even small, imperfect action, breaks the rumination loop more effectively than any cognitive technique. Not because action solves the problem, because action gives your amygdala real information instead of imagined threats. This sounds absurd. It isn't. Research published in the Journal of Experimental Psychopathology found that people who confined their worrying to a specific 30-minute window each day reduced intrusive thoughts significantly. Your brain needs to know the loop has a container. Give it one. 3. The abstraction shift. Remember Watkins' research on abstraction levels? The antidote isn't positive thinking, it's specificity. When you catch yourself asking, "Why am I like this?" replace it with, "What is one thing I can do in the next hour?" Not forever, not perfectly. One thing, 1 hour, and 4, the hardest one. Sit with not knowing. Dr. Stephen Hayes, founder of acceptance and commitment therapy, has spent decades studying what he calls psychological flexibility, the ability to have an uncomfortable thought or feeling without letting it dictate your behavior. The overthinker's brain screams, "Resolve this, fix this, know this." The work is learning to hear that scream and choose not to obey it, not once, every day, for a very long time. You are not your thoughts, but you have believed that you are for so long that silence feels like a threat. The goal isn't a quiet mind. The goal is a mind you are no longer afraid of. That is slow work, uncomfortable work, mostly invisible work. But you've been doing hard things your whole life. You've just been doing them inside your head, alone, at 2 a.m. The loop ends when you decide real life is worth more than imagined safety.